So
And I
interesting.
think that's the biggest key in a well done film set is when people are all there to support and help each other, rather than going, well, my job today is this, and I'm only going to do this. And if anyone asks for any other help, I'm not going to do that. Now, granted, I know there are some union rules that sometimes you can't do that, but as much as you can, if you can help each other and support each other and try to make the best product you can, it's going to be easier. The days are going to be lighter. You're going to feel happier. The product's going to be better. It's that power of positivity. And you know me.
Oh yeah.
You've seen what I've gone through. So you know this is a big thing for me.
Welcome back to the Crew Coffee Podcast. This is a podcast all about growing your experience as a filmmaker and putting awesome people around you to grow your crews. I'm personally trying to grow the relationships in my life to become a better filmmaker and eventually make the movies that I really want to make. And I brought on the podcast today somebody who I really respect and have gotten to make a lot of cool films with, Finn. He is an actor, director, and really rising DP in this recent season, and he's had the amazing, unique experience of making so many short films in the year of 2019, and I'll let him share a little bit more about that. But I'm super excited to have you here on the podcast.
Hey, it's great to be here, man. Thanks for asking. I'm really excited to do this.
Absolutely, man. So I wanted to go ahead and start off by giving you a chance to introduce yourself and what you do in the film industry.
Sure. So, as you know, my name is Finn. My full name is Michael Finn, but you'll only hear me referred to as Finn for the most part. I started as an actor back in high school. I was an actor and musician, and it was a way for me to spend time with all my friends and do the things that we all really love together. And it was a big release for me as a child to go to the theater. So I wanted to give back and be able to perform and give people the same experience I had. So I got into acting there, and then in college got into directing. And it wasn't until after graduating college and moving to New York that I really got into working behind the camera as well. And now I've done pretty much everything you can do behind the camera. I've been a DP, an editor, a gaffer, a sound technician. I've done sound design. I've written scripts for both stage and film. I have directed over 30 short films by this point. And I've directed theater shows. I've been on national tours. So I'm pretty much a jack of all trades, but I do enjoy directing and acting first and foremost.
That's really awesome. And I think it's really crazy to think about the fact that you've directed 30 short films. But what's even more crazy about that is I feel like probably at least 25 of them were done in the year of 2019.
Yeah, somewhere in the low to mid 20s. I actually lost count after about 15. I know I think I did 22 straight weeks of shooting a film every week to finish out the year. And there were a couple short films in there as well. And then there was a 48 hour that I was involved in. There was a 24-hour that I DP'd. Man, yeah, it might even be closer to 30.
That's amazing. That's so wild because it's like there's a lot of people who go through doing one or two short films in a year. I mean, even on my early career, I shot a lot, but I only did about 4 or 5 short films. And I feel like every short film that I did probably helped me grow more than any project that I did. So I can't even imagine how much any of these short films really helped you grow in your cinematography as well as directing career.
Yeah, it's a great point, actually. It really took my career to a whole nother level because there was so much, um, for lack of a better term, there was a lot of self-doubt. There was a lot of me saying, I haven't done a lot. I've made a couple films in New York. I've made, 2 or 3 short films since I moved to Georgia, and I've lived here about 6 years now. And I was really at a point where I was like, is this something I really want to do? And B, is it something I actually can do? So I got to a point where I started just kind of playing around and shooting my own stuff and working on some project with friends, and then a small group event that I will keep nameless because it's growing in such popularity that I
Yes.
don't want to blast it too much. But it challenges me to make a film every week, basically, on these rules. So that was a great thing because it made me hone in on specifics, and it really made me say, okay, I'm going to focus on this week, and I'm going to do color grading this week, or sound, or really I'm going to do storytelling this week and camera movement the next week. And I would pick certain things to focus on each week. And then because I did 1 week of one skill, that would just incorporate itself seamlessly into the next week without thinking about it as much. And when you're constantly working the muscles and constantly pushing yourself, the growth just happens so fast.
Hmm.
So even if you don't have a giant budget, or you don't have any budget, or you don't think you can be a filmmaker, or you feel insecure about the role you're doing, or the crew position you're filling, whatever it is, just do it. Like, get out there, try it, see if it's for you, see if you understand it. If you don't be afraid to ask questions, because I learned so much working with other people through all of this.
Yeah.
The first few films I did by myself. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know a lot of people. I think one of the rules was you had to do it by yourself the first week I did it. So I was like, oh great. And then after that, I started watching other people's work and saying, oh, I like his camera work. I'm gonna see if I can work with him one of these weeks. Or I like her writing. I'm gonna see if I can work with her. Or, you know, I really like their acting style. I'm gonna see if I can pull them in. And I started reaching out and just trying new things and talking to new people. And I think from what you're talking about growing your crew, that's the most essential thing you can do.
For real.
You have to be comfortable enough to say, I want to surround myself with people that are better than me, stronger than me, more talented than me, whatever you think they are, and know that I can still do this. And if I start to falter, I can ask them questions. I can rely on other people. So many of us feel like we need to do this on our own, and we have to have all the answers. Or if I'm directing a film and I get stuck on a question, I have to figure it out by myself. And that's not how this industry really works.
Yeah.
No single director, performer, writer, anyone has ever made it on their own. Whether you have an agent that's helping you, or a manager, or a literary manager, actor friends who support you, EPs that you can learn from. Even if you're quote unquote self-taught, which I have made the mistake of saying I'm self-taught. You know how many YouTube videos I've watched and how many books I've read?
Yes.
I'm not self-taught. I learned, like, I've made myself sit down and do the work, but I've learned from other people. It's not like I just picked up a camera and figured it all out on my own.
That's huge. That's really
Yeah.
huge. And so a question in that, and then I have a couple thoughts on it. What you said that you've directed 30 films, and then you talked about like being in these different positions. How many films do you think you were actually a part of in the year of 2019, not including directing?
Oh, it's got to be over 60.
That's crazy.
It's gotta be.
That's so
'Cause you figure
crazy.
I got over 24 DP credits
Yeah.
last year.
And so he mentioned briefly the Unnamed Group, and I'll keep it unnamed, and I'll talk to the owner of it about talking about it, because he's talking about possibly doing some stuff online. But in is giving a brief overview of what that group is, they make a film every week and they share it, and then they all make films together. And something I'm kind of curious to know from you about, how many people in the span of those 60 films that you worked on and that you got TP credits, all of these different things, ended up helping you on the projects that you ended up directing?
Oh man, a lot. Because it was so interesting when I started and I was doing them by myself, or like I'd have like one actor come in and I would shoot the whole thing on my own and edit it. And I'm like, no, I'm a one-man film crew. I'm going to do this, And it was like, it got to the point where it became so overwhelming to try to do that every week and do all the work by yourself. So I wanted to learn. I wanted to grow. So I asked certain people to come in. I remember the first DP I asked to work with was James Whiteman, who's amazing. His work is so good. And we speak a very similar film language, which made it really easy to jump into work together.
What does that mean?
Like, oh, I'm thinking about.
Like, so, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like, that's such an interesting concept there. Cause like you speaking somebody's film language, you might as well say like the common thought, and not to rant too much, cause I'd love to hear your thoughts, is that you would have good film language or bad film language, or that you would do it a good job or a bad job. What do you mean by you spoke the same film language?
Yeah, I don't think there is. I think there's so many levels to film language, right?
Yeah.
Like if I watch a lot of and I watch a lot of Fincher movies. I watch a lot of Spielberg movies. Christopher Nolan, Spike Jonze is one of my favorites. I love Scorsese. I'm a little divided on some of his stuff, but his style is very specific. Um, who else? Like, there's so many. Guillermo del Toro is I'm a big fan because it just visually he's so impactful. But it's certain shots, it's certain styles. Like Fincher has a very specific style
Yeah,
to his work, you know. And Spielberg loves his oneers. Like, and I love camera movement. Like Kurosawa is my hero because of the way he knows how to move camera and people and use weather to create just beautiful scenery and artistic cinematic quality. 1917 was such a good film, and I know that's a sidebar, but like just the camera movement in that alone
absolutely.
was a masterpiece. So James watches very similar stuff. We're both very into Fincher. We really
Mm,
love the way he moves a camera and tells a story. So when we were working together, it was really easy to speak the same language because we could reference shots or movies or styles from directors that we both were very familiar with. So if I was to say, okay, this shot, I want to look similar to, I don't know, the scene from Gone Girl, let's say, where the camera just slides over a little bit. It's kind of uncomfortable. And he would just know before I even finished the sentence because we were on the same page about the style of the short we were doing.
yeah, that's
So
super
film
interesting.
language is such an interesting thing because it's not only the directors you watch or the films that you watch, but there's certain styles of shots. Like, super shout out to this book series that I read. It's called Master Shots,
Hmm.
3 volume. It's 100 different shot setups in each volume about like just ways to make your film more interesting. So for me, like, you know, shot, reverse shot, over the shoulders, they're fine and they're serviceable, but there's got to be a more interesting way to tell a story.
Yeah.
And that language and knowing how to explain a shot and reference it is a really interesting thing between filmmakers.
And I think that's so
So,
intriguing within this the limits of like actually building those crews and building those relationships because just like any art form, even to the point of saying that language is like you've both watched possibly 1917 and to reference something from that movie to communicate as an idea in the film that you're making or even what you loved about that scene really makes it
mhm.
easy to duplicate with a DP director combo. And the less like that there's these similarities. Sometimes the contrast is good, but I think it's really cool to find those people that you both get excited about the film that you're working on, which you can only do by doing a bunch of films with people that you may have not expected to do those films with in the first place.
Right, absolutely. And it's interesting too because I found that as an artist, I like to challenge myself and try different styles and different ways to tell a story, just because I'm still finding my voice, right?
Yeah.
So on certain projects, I know that certain DPs are going to be exactly who I want to work with. Like if I want to do these fun camera movements and these tracking shots and all these things, like the fight scene one that I did, that's very Fight Club ish.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Um, yeah, I knew James was the guy for that because I knew I barely have to say anything and you know exactly what I was looking for. But if
Exactly.
I'm going to do a different style of film, like I also really love horror film, I may go with a different DP. And I'm not saying that as a knock against anyone. It's just like sometimes DPs get excited about one style over another, or they have a different skill set. And luckily, like the people I've worked with are very versatile, and they've been really, really helpful to teach me how to DP as well. Um, but it's finding those people that, like you said, they get excited about the idea and they're on
Yeah,
the same page, or they want to not only help tell you, sorry,
you're
not only
fine.
want to help you tell the story, but they can actually help enhance the story
That's
because they have
huge.
their ideas to bring to the table. And especially as a director, I never want to shut anyone's ideas down.
Interesting.
I will listen to everything you have. I will bring it to me, please. I want to hear your ideas. If I don't agree with it or I don't think it'll work, I will say so in a nice way. And I'll say, look, I really like that. Let's save it for another project. I see what you're saying. I don't think it's the right thing for right here, but I like where your head's at. Maybe we can use that later, or maybe we could play with it. But I I can only have so many ideas of my own, right?
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, well, that's the best thing about a film family. Like if you talk about building these crews, and I think I see it slightly different where I'm really trying to build my community, my family,
Mm,
so that we can have those kinds of open conversations, and I don't have to worry about oh, I don't know this guy that well. I don't know what he's going to bring to the table. It's more like, oh, I know they have ideas and they have ideas, and I'm willing to hear them because I can only see so many ideas at once. But they might have an idea that's actually better than mine.
That's really interesting. And I think that it really comes into play in different ways in different places. Because, like, the idea of building your crews around just having a cup of coffee with them or having a meal with them is you learn about the chemistry between the two people. And something I kind of wanted to address in this idea, because this is a controversial, but not necessarily controversial. I think it's really unique that you mentioned, like, being a director, you want to hear everybody's ideas. And there's a certain place that works. And then there's a certain place that doesn't. But I think that a lot of people think that there's a right way to do that or a wrong way, but I think it's knowing that time and that place. And what's really cool about specifically the films that you were working on, you had the flexibility in this space to be able to get those ideas to learn. I just had the honor of being able to pretty big set. The director actually had the opportunity to create this really cool set, and one of the people involved really wanted to give a lot of input, and it created a lot of stress for the director. And it consistently was like, what's going on? What's going on? And the director had such a clear vision that they'd spent so much time in pre-pro for this super tight deadline that they didn't have time to hear these creative ideas. And that became a problem. Whereas whenever you're working on a set like you have the flexibility and the creativity to learn and grow from a massive amount of ideas, which I think is a really fun way to build unique relationships on set rather than just know who's going to work.
It's a wonderful thing. And if I can piggyback off that, I think it's really, it's very production specific, right? When I'm doing a super short film, a microfilm, whatever it is, a 5-page, 10-page short film, and I've got flexibility and time, I'm all for hearing your ideas while on set and kind of adapting on the fly. If I'm doing a longer project and I've done all this pre-production, that's where I want to hear your idea.
Yeah.
On the day of the shoot, if I've got a tight deadline and everything, I'll listen, but chances are I'm going to be a lot less flexible because I know we have to get certain things done. We're on a budget, we're on a timeline, and we've got to keep things moving. I can't scrap certain things and completely redo a shot list on the fly if I know things are that tight. So that's where, if you've got the ideas, like in pre-production, I want to have my DP there. I want to have, actors do a table read and get feedback before I ever go on to set on those bigger ideas, because they'll have ideas there. They'll have ideas already coming to them before we even hit there. So if someone says, hey, I was thinking about, scene 17, for example, what if we did this crane shot or this jib shot, whatever it is, instead of doing just the standard walking down the street, just floating next to them, and it'd be like, oh, that could be really interesting. Let me take a look at it. Let me see if it fits the budget, and then we go from there.
Yeah.
If you tell me that on the day of the set and I don't have a crew, it's like, not getting done.
What's gonna do? And even to the littlest things, like even like ideas that are really helpful, but sometimes when you're on set, you're going so quickly that you don't have time to adjust for the things that may cause problems, and then you do the really amazing idea, which sometimes this is fun. Like if you don't have to worry about the consequences of a decision and you're just making something fun, I think it's worth letting your film get screwed up so that you can learn something new. But there's times that you can't like let that happen. Because it's for a client or it's for something really important, or even if the film's really important to you, there are times to let go of control, but there's also times that I think that you have to find the balance in the catch-22. But what I think is really probably the most important thing to know is that you need both of the experiences to be able to consistently make good films. But there are certain times that you're learning to be a little bit more structured, and there are times that you need to pull back and allow for that creativity to be flexed. If you're not doing both, then you're not learning to be a professional, but you're also not learning to be an artist.
Yeah. I mean, I just shot a short film this year. And I worked with a new DP, and I knew exactly what I was looking for going into it.
Yeah.
I had a clear vision. I knew the style. I knew it was supposed to be 2 1-shots basically. And I was like, I know exactly the flow I want, all of this. I was working with a new DP I hadn't worked with, and their style is very different than mine. So we would do it, and luckily we had a lot of time to play and be a little bit loose with the camera, and like I could watch playback and go into it and go, okay, I like what you did there. I see what you're going for. This is more of the feel I'm trying to capture. Can we compromise? Can we both work on our vision and find a vision that suits the both of us, which is awesome. Flip side of that is I shot in a restaurant where I literally had a hard deadline of like,
I
okay, you
remember
have
this
3 hours to get this scene, and we've got to get in, set up, shoot, and be out in 3 hours for a page and a half. And I was like, okay. And people are like, hey, what if we did this? Hey, I'm like, guys, I unfortunately don't have time for any of this. I love your suggestions, but like I've got 3 cameras set up and I've got the coverage that I need, and we don't have the time to start playing around. And you just sometimes have to put your foot down and just go with what you got. And the only thing we changed the very last shot of the day, which is actually the opening shot of the scene.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a bit of a tighter shot on the people that the conversation was about. And my DP was like, why don't we widen out and do more of this shot, which was actually another Fincher reference. And I was like, oh, you know what? That could look really good. And if we're shooting in 4K, I can always punch in if I need.
Exactly. And I feel like I remember watching that, and that was one of the first films that I saw you make that I was like, man, Finn is really taking strides to improve and grow as a filmmaker. And it's fun because that was such a limited film. Like you had such huge boundaries to shoot, to create, even to edit it. It was, and I think that a lot of times filmmakers are like, man, when I had all the tools, when I have all the crew, when I have all of the different things that I'd want to make my film, then my films are going to be really good. But I honestly think that was one of your most limited films, and it was one of the best films that I'd seen you make up to that point.
Thanks. I appreciate it. And I will admit too, it's one of the best scripts I've written for those microfilms too, because
Yeah.
even though the end had this comedic twist, without that, the film still would have hit. And the dialogue is some of the best work I personally think I had done at the time. And yeah, I agree. I love that film, and it was one of those like, that was my big step into high production value. Let me see if I can do this, defining moments of like, okay, I can be a film.
That's awesome.
And there was no budget, and
that's so interesting.
Like, I didn't rent that. I called in a favor and was like, hey, can I shoot in here before you guys open?
And so let's spend a little bit of time, because like you're probably the king at this. Before we go into anything else, you've done primarily a majority of these scenes. Most of the films that you've done in these projects have been almost completely no budget, haven't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like no to low budget. I mean, I did a film, this is 4 or 5 years ago. I did a microfilm shortly after moving here, that, just for fun. My friend and I were like, what can we do? There's 1-minute film challenges out there. Let's just do something. Like, let's just make something. And we literally shot this film called Flat. It's one of my first solo directorial and DP credits. And my friend and I co-wrote it, and it literally just kind of takes a horror trope, flips it on his head. And we shot it with 0 budget. I think we spent $6 on a shirt because we needed like the guy to look like he was a repairman. And that was it. We spent no other money. We shot it all down the street from my old apartment. I edited the whole thing, and we won awards with that film.
That's awesome.
So it's cool. What it taught me was you don't need all of those pieces, right? You don't need the big financial backer or the crew of 25 people or the cast of 17. Like, it's nice to have those things, but you can still tell a story with what you have at any given time.
And I think a lot of people, especially right out of film school, are expecting some kind of huge financial backing from somebody because they have the best script in the world, which they don't. Mm-hmm. And they're expecting people to give them money. And these investors know that these are not seasoned professionals, and they're going to give up when things get tough. Whereas if you're willing to do so many projects on the early end with nothing, which means that you don't have anything stopping you from making them, by the time that you get done with your 60th film, an investor is going to be able to come up to you and look at you and say, you've made so much. You have the ability. All money's going to do is amplify what you've learned how to do, which is being awesome. And I think that's a really lost idea, is investors are not looking for the big break. They know that there's so much talent out there. So they're waiting to find those people who are actually willing to do the hard work and make their first 60 films.
Right.
Which I don't necessarily think people need to make 60 films, but I love that you did.
No, I don't think anyone should ever make 60 films in the time frame that I did. 'Cause I was so tired. I mean, don't get me wrong. I loved it, but I was also exhausted. Yeah, it's a tricky thing, and I agree. I think um, people they expect these people to read their script and go, okay, we're going to give you $5 million, and that's never going to happen. You know, it's so interesting because people just feel like, oh, I've done this work, or I went to film school, or I bought this camera, and I'm a filmmaker. Someone's going to give me this money, right? Someone's
Yeah.
going to read my script and go, oh, I'm so wowed by you. And it used to be that you could make, 20-minute short films and get into these festivals and get into Sundance or Cannes or whatever
Yeah.
and get noticed. But that doesn't really happen anymore
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many politics and there's so much money involved and there's so many people flooding the market because filmmaking has become much more accessible with digital filmmaking.
Yeah.
And it's financially easier to make a film. As you said, I made so many films for nothing, and now in order to really get financial backing for a feature, you need to have made a feature.
Yeah. That's
Like,
huge.
you've just got to find a way to go out and raise your 10 grand or 15 grand, whatever it is, and not pay yourself. Find a crew that's willing to work for peanuts, that is just as passionate as you are and wants the credit, and find people that believe in it and make the feature, and then show it to people and say, well, I've already made one, so you can trust that I can get through that.
That's huge.
Because features are and I'm not saying this from experience as a director because I haven't shot my first feature yet, although I'm planning on it very soon.
Interesting.
I have worked on a lot of as an actor or on crew, and it's such a fascinating thing, and it's so different than shooting a short film, and people don't realize
That's
it's
so
a very
interesting.
different ballgame.
So, kind of talk with me in this experience of working on different projects, features. I know that you've had the chance to even act on some larger shows. I'm pretty sure you acted on a DC show a while back, didn't you?
I was on Black Lightning.
Yeah, that's right. That was
Yeah,
so much fun to see you on there, man. I was literally, I don't think I even heard about I hadn't heard about it, and I was watching an episode and I saw you pop up. Weren't you a villain in the character or in the show?
yeah. I was, and I'm credited as man, which I think is hilarious because
That's
I've
awesome.
got like this whole scene. So we had this fake petition of like, bring the man back, damn the man. Uh,
That's awesome.
I was just called the man, and I was like, all right, cool.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah,
Well,
that was a really fun set, but that was, I mean, that one scene was a 12-hour shoot.
yeah. Oh my
You
gosh.
know, yeah, it was a long night because it was outdoors, it was overnight. They had to get everything just right. There was a lot of stunts involved, so it's a process. Plus, it's season one,
Yeah.
so they're still feeling things out. They were still trying to get the flow of the show, and generally, as things get into it more, the production time kind of speeds up.
Well,
It was a real fascinating set to be on.
in the process of all of these sets that you've been able to be on, what have been some of the more difficult experiences and even the contrast of being able to work on some of those higher production value sets versus some of the sets that you've enjoyed? What would you say were some of the most difficult experiences that you had?
Ooh, the most difficult. I think at least on the bigger sets when you're starting out, because I had a pretty good run in 2018, I think it was, when I did Black Lightning. I did the Bobby Brown story. I booked Tales, and I was kind of cruising for a minute. But there's that nervousness of being the new guy on set, and
Yeah.
not wanting to step on toes and wanting to go out. The big thing is, like, personally, I do my homework.
Yeah.
I go in prepared and ready to crush a scene every time I set foot on a set or on a stage. I'm good to go. But I've been on sets where I've watched people not know their lines, complain about their blocking,
Oh,
complain
shoot.
about the hours. And I'm talking, like, I've seen background do it too. And to me, it creates such a difficult um, energy because the negativity that feeds off of them tends to infect another person, and then someone else starts getting upset because they're like, yeah, we have been here for a little while, or yeah, it has been a long night, or yeah, it is a little cold outside. And then they start thinking, and they start talking to their friend, and they're like, I'm getting a little tired about this. And it's like, guys, you have to understand, like, we got hired to do a job.
Yeah.
We're getting paid to be here to do what's asked of us in this scene to get the best scene possible. If you're going to start mouthing off and you're going to start creating this negative space, it's a very small industry. People talk. You're not going to work.
Yeah, that's huge.
Like the negativity of the industry is probably the most difficult thing that I found. And granted, there's, you know, I've worked with some amazing people. I've worked with some really terrible people. There are people that still owe me money from years ago. And it's like, you gotta pick and choose your battles. You can't fight every fight full on and think that you're going to be looked at as this bright, positive person. When I come on set, I want to energize. I want to go out. I want to crush it. I want to make everyone else's job easier so that we can all go home and enjoy our lives.
That's so interesting. That's really interesting. And I think that that idea didn't really make sense to me in some of my early years. Even just the analogy of the negativity is just infectious onto other people. But like you can always feel that, especially when I'm a director and I'm working. This is the most difficult thing for me, ironically, is when I have just like PAs that genuinely feel like they're in a higher position. And it feels like, oh my gosh, it's for me, it's just like, it stops my brain. I'm like, wait a minute. Wait, what? Like, I'm so lost as to why you thought that you were the director on set. And that's partially just my personality, but it's such an interesting contrast to having a PA on set who literally, and I mean, I've had you PA on sets where you are overworking, you are doing more than what's asked of you, and even in unfair capacities. And you're not complaining. Huh?
I don't know what you're talking about. I never overwork.
Yeah. You always work harder than everybody else on set, which I love, but it blows me away compared to all of the PAs that don't have that attitude. Because for one thing, I'm never asking those people on set again. And I'm sure that they would feel like, oh, well, I'm never working on that set again. Awesome. Then you're never going to work on set. Like you're not going to film sets is not a place where you go to be respected. Film sets are a place where you yield respect. It's very similar to driving. Like if you're trying to say, I have the right of way here, you're going to crash into somebody. But if you're willing to consistently yield the right of way and say, I'm here to serve and I'm here to work hard, you'll create an experience with the directors to where you'll almost always get asked back on set. And I was really, really intrigued by this idea because here recently, I mean, I've PA'd for this one company, I hate like probably 5 or 6 times. And I was blown away because they just asked me to AD for them recently. And I just didn't expect that. And I asked him why. And his big takeaway was that like, I never have to complain about you on set. Besides the fact that I have on 2 of their sets ripped my pants, which I have no idea why they've asked me back. 2 of their sets. I never do that. It's in the span. It was just like, I did it. And it was just like, oh my gosh. But in that sense, apparently I still worked hard. So
yeah.
Good.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that's a key point is, you know, you get out of it what you put into it, right?
Yeah.
Just like anything else. So if you go in with a positive attitude, positivity is just as contagious as negativity.
Yes.
It's just people don't practice it as much. And if they are positive, they tend not to like push it on people because they're already good. Whereas negative people want to be hurt. They want to complain, right? So if you get in what you put out. So go in, be positive, do the work, have fun, and you know, infect other people with that. Like
that's huge.
I worked on my first union gig was The Villain, the M. Night Shyamalan movie, right? This was back in 03. Wow. I was shortly out of college. I went to an open call. I got picked to be in the scene. I was super positive. I got called to be on that set 28 days as a background performer. I shot 28 days. And half those days, I didn't even get called to set, but they kept bringing me in because they said, you know, we just like having you around. You're just a fun energy.
That's big.
I was like, you know, that taught me a lot at a young age. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I know I have my days. And I know, like, we're artists. We're emotional. I've gone through some dark spots.
Yeah.
Where I know I've been on some sets where I could feel the negativity coming.
Yeah.
But when that happens with me, I try not to give it to anyone else.
Yeah.
Even if I'm in a bad mood, I try not to show it. And I try not to spread it. Because I can at least do that.
That's so big. And it's intriguing because like on a film set or even just in life, this is a philosophical concept. If you can give your best as a gift without expecting anything in return, you'll really gain what you were looking for, which like if you go there giving your best, expecting something in return, you look like the most obnoxious weirdo in the world. Like you just feel like if you're like, man, I'm the hardest worker here, so hire me for our set. Or you say like, dude, like I used to be this guy, and so I have to give some grace to him. But the guy who's networking with everybody on set and says, "I'm a hard worker. I'm a hard worker. I'm a hard worker." Like, bro, chill. Everybody will call you if you are the hardest worker on set.
Yeah.
But if you
You
have
don't
to
have to
tell
tell
somebody,
people.
you are not that
Yeah.
person. And that's so difficult to understand. And like some of my best, and the reason why I can do film almost full time has come always from like being on set without even asking, and then reaching out and then just getting to know the people. Like the
Yeah.
ask comes naturally after the more organic conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. It's a show don't tell industry.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and it's tough because so many people are out for themselves, and I'm an actor, so I can say that actors do it all the time. We're always like, oh, I can do this, or I could be in that role, or I could do better than this,
Yeah.
and it's not a self-serving thing. We're all in this place to help tell one story, right?
Yeah.
We're all together to tell the best story we can. So if we all start to approach it in the same mindset of like, hey, I'm here to help tell this story, right? I'm here to help make the best film possible. I'm here to help, this person do their job as best as they can, rather than saying, I'm going to show what I've got and you make it about everyone else. Guess what? Everyone else is going to make it about you as well. And you're all going to lift each other up together. It's the same thing like the rules of improv.
Yeah.
When you do improv, you don't go out on stage and try to like drown your partner. Your whole point is to lift your partner up, and their goal is to lift you up, so that together you just keep rising.
That's so
And
interesting.
I think that's the biggest key in a well done film set, is when people are all there to support and help each other, rather than going, well, my job today is this, and I'm only going to do this. And if anyone asks for any other help, I'm not going to do that. Now, granted, I know there are some union rules that sometimes you can't do that, but as much as you can, if you can help each other and support each other and try to make the best product you can, it's going to be easier. The days are going to be lighter. You're going to feel happier. The product's going to be better. It's that power of positivity. And you know me.
Oh yeah.
You've seen what I've gone through. So this is a big thing for me.
That's so good. And that's so big, man. I feel like that's going to be a big part of like your future success. I'm really excited to see in this next season your films that you're going to be creating, because honestly, like I can't even stress how like excited I am to see your first feature and to hear the stories of what it's like on set. Every set that I hear about you on, I hear nothing but praise. Like I can't even begin, like of course, keeping yourself humble. Every time I ask, who's the person I should get as my go-getter for set? Every single person at the film nights that we go to says Finn. Like, ask Finn. Finn is the go-getter. Like, any set that you need him, whatever you need him to be on, the stories, the experiences, the memories that you create on set, you always end up leaving a set way better than it would have been without you. So I can't wait to hear more about this feature in the coming season. And I'd love to, whenever you actually start working on it, I think it'd be really fun to interview you on the experiences you had in it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know if you're trying to make me cry right now, but no, that's awesome. Like, because I don't ever hear these,
Yeah.
and that's okay, because I put in the time, and it's funny because the reason I learned to DP and to edit and to do all that is because as a director, I want to make sure I can communicate, right?
Yeah.
So the more I know about other positions, the more I can openly communicate with people and get to where we need to go fast, right?
Yeah.
So to hear all of this it's a wonderful thing for me, because I have no idea. The only one I know of is actually from the set you and I worked on, where I was that PA that wound up doing way too much work.
Yeah.
That got me my first professional DP gig,
Yeah.
where I was the DP and the director sent by myself with another person like that I was interviewing to St. Louis and back twice.
Yes.
And that was it. It was just me. Like, but it's because I put the work in,
Yeah.
and I'm not, I hate talking about myself. I really do it because I feel like it's bragging, but it's like, I put in the time, I put in the effort, I pushed myself to a level of, okay, I have the confidence to now grab a camera or two and set these shots up and run on the fly because of all the work that I've been doing.
That's huge.
And yeah, it's massive, but like, I never hear the flip side of it.
Yeah. And that's huge for me,
I
man.
just do it. I do the work. I drop off the footage, and then I go, let me know if the footage is okay. And when I get that confirmation email that says, hey, this footage looks great, cool. but that's all I ever hear.
Yeah. And I think that
So
like for you to hear that is a huge deal because I really want to see you. And this is the whole idea. I would love to see you on some of these more high end sets. And this is the irony in some of these lower positions, because once you start, like, there's a difference between learning on the sets that are like fun and that you can grow your ability and your skills, and then applying that to PAing for like a, not a union gig, but a high end indie gig, to where you like, there's some of these companies are paying like $30 an hour for PAs, which is awesome. Like, and those are the places that I feel like when you jump into those spots and are really, really good as a PA, you're going to be DPing at $100 to $200 rates every single week, because when people see how valuable you are in a set, they have to have more of you. And even like, this is just to tickle your fancy. Kyle McDowell was a DP that I worked with on the set that you and I were on, that I AD'd on. And I remember asking about like, who did he like on set? And he was like, Michael Finn was probably the best all arounder. And even though you didn't have as much experience in like gaffing as he normally would work with, he was like, he knew how to be adaptive and work hard and get these things done. And I thought that was a really fun thing to hear from him. But I also think that it's one of the things that I'd love to just see and hear about the stories of is some of the bigger sets that you're going to be jumping onto in this next season.
Yeah, dude, I'm still excited, and I'm trying to contain it because it's a podcast, so you can't see my expression on my face. But like, I've been smiling for the past like 45 minutes, and my cheeks hurt.
That's awesome.
But it comes like, it's the passion, you know. Like, you've known me long enough to know where my heart is and how big my heart is and how much it's been like kind of shut down for a couple years.
Yeah.
To be able to light that fire over the last year and get that back, and the intensity, like. I have friends that we did not start out as friends because they thought I was a prick, because I'm just a very intense person and I'm very direct. But I've learned to really channel that and use it to grow and to create, in the best way that I can. And I think the people that I enjoy working with and the people that I respect the most and that seem to respect me the most are the people that I can be that direct with, because we know it's a job. We know that we're out here to create something together, and the time is limited. So cut through the BS and just get to the point, and like, let's have that conversation. And at the end of the day, we're still going to be friends, whether we get into a yelling match about one shot or not.
For real.
Because that's happened. Like, at the end of the day, we both know it's because we're passionate and we're on the same page. We're on the same team. It's just every once in a while we see things a little different, so we'll butt heads for a second, especially on the end of a long day. It's a lot easier to kind of let that guard down and just get fired up. But it's never out of a place of malice. I never do it to be mean. I never want to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
It's always like, hey, this is where my heart is. This is what I see, especially if I'm directing. Like, this is where I need to get to. And if you can't see that vision, I'm going to have to step in and help make it work. But I need people to pick up on that. And on the flip side, if I'm the DP and I see this angle that I think could really work and the director doesn't want it, I've got to know that I've got to step down. I've got to say, okay, this is your vision. I've got to support your vision.
Yes.
I'm trying to help, but like, I can't get all heated about something that's not necessarily mine. I don't care who you are in this industry. There's always something new to learn.
Yes.
Always. And when you get to a point where you say, oh, I've mastered this skill, or I've learned everything I can about this, get more specific, get more focused, find something new to learn, because too many people get complacent. I've watched too many of my friends fall into co-star roles in TV and keep booking co-star roles and stop trying to reach for the next level, because they're just like, well, I've made it. No, you haven't. There's more to learn. There's always more to learn. That's the thing about life. The other thing, as filmmakers, as storytellers, as artists, start traveling more. And it doesn't have to be crazy international. You don't have to go to Japan or Mongolia or Antarctica or wherever it is your heart wants to go. Travel to States.
That's awesome.
Our country is so huge that we have like a million little things within it, like so many different pockets and styles, and every state has its own identity. Travel, because you will immerse yourself in culture. And I guarantee you, if you keep your eyes open and you start listening, you will learn something new every day you do it.
That's amazing.
If that makes sense.
No, that makes so much sense. And I think it's really going to take huge leaps and bounds into the features and the projects you're going to be working on in the next year. Well, dude, I am
Yeah.
super grateful for your willingness to kind of chat with me for the past about hour. And I think that there's so much more that I'd love to talk with you about, especially after you start working on this feature project. There's going to be so many stories to hear and to come. But if you guys want to check out some of his work, you can look at it over on Instagram. I'll link to it down in the doobly-doos. And if you want to see some of his film work, I'll also link to that as well. Michael is a hugely talented filmmaker and actor. I'd really recommend following his work. For some of you newer filmmakers, he's just an inspiring example of how to go from one side of the industry to the next. And then for some of you more experienced filmmakers, I think he's a brilliant example of how not to let even your experience in the film industry stop you from being willing to learn some amazing new things. And if you want to continue to listen to the podcast, I would love for you to subscribe to the YouTube channel or follow us on the podcasting app of your choice. I'm really excited for the stories that we're going to be telling here in the near future of some great filmmakers who have been in the industry for a long time to some newer filmmakers. I feel like the biggest thing that you need to learn to take your filmmaking career to the next level, and that I'm really starting to learn, is by building amazing crews or amazing families around you to create the stories that you really want to do.